Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Шрила Прабхупада ки, Шри Гауранитай ки. Лектора нету. Lector is not came. We will continue to Kirtan. Yeah? Yeah? Not? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Shri Radha Madhava ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Sunday program at Karuna Bhavan. Today we have a topic called anger management in Krishna consciousness. It can be very, very helpful and practical topic in the daily life. So I'd like to welcome Adhoksaja Prabhu to give this topic with 3 loud Hari Bols. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Yes. Sorry.
Hari Bol. Everyone's gone now. So, anyone got a problem with anger? You okay with anger? You don't get angry? You're always getting angry at me. So, what's the opposite of being angry? If a person was angry and he had to replace it, what would he replace it with? Anything else? Calm. Being calm. Yeah, you could be calmly angry. You could be like, okay, I'm going to get my own back. So it's calm, but you're really angry. What's another one? What's another opposite? If you found yourself being angry and you thought, okay, this is not good, what am I going to do instead? Calm. We've just had that one. Yeah. What would be the opposite of being angry? So we've got compassion, being kind, forgiving. That's the one I was looking for because I've been doing a forgiveness course and I've got loads of things about forgiveness. So a person that's angry, you can only be angry if you can't be angry and forgive somebody, isn't it? Could you imagine doing that, being angry at someone and forgiving them? Well, I suppose you could go through the kind of mental exercise of forgiving them, but then deep down inside, so you kind of formally said that, but still it's going on. You haven't really processed your anger. So yeah, you have one side, anger. So the anger management, and then on the other side is being more forgiving. So that's a proactive way, because if you're being a very forgiving person, a very appreciative person, a very humble person, then you really do reduce the chances of yourself becoming angry. So sometimes the reason why we are angry is because we feel it's justified. So I'm going to tell you a story now, which is very, very sad. And if any of you don't like sad stories, then it's a good time to leave just now. But if you do want to hang on, then I would suggest you have a box of tissues not far, because I burst into tears the first time I heard it. But it's a good story because it illustrates something about how anger works and how forgiveness works. Everyone still here? You going to be okay with this? Yeah. So there was a man who had a car that he was very attached to. Some people are very attached to their cars. And he came back and his son was scratching it. This is a really sad story, actually. It's a true story as well, which makes it even sadder. So his son was scratching his car with a stone, a little pebble. scratching the paintwork. So you can imagine his father was very angry. So his father grabbed him and started smacking his hand, you know. But later on, he realized he'd actually been smacking his hand with a monkey wrench, because that was the thing he had in his hand at the time when he came out and saw him. And he'd just been really angry. Anyway, so his son got rushed to hospital and lost the use of his hand. Then his father became very sad and committed suicide. And then, oh no, actually he didn't. His father came back, and on the side of the car was scratched, "Daddy, I love you." And then he couldn't forgive himself. So there's a few lessons to learn there. Is that if you don't learn the art of forgiveness and anger management control for everybody else, then the problem is that you will also suffer from it in the future, because if you can't forgive anybody else, then you won't be able to forgive yourself either. And we all make mistakes. Sometimes we make very bad mistakes. So if we can learn this art of forgiveness and anger management, then it means that in the future, then it won't be so bad for us also. Because we can be our own worst enemy, actually. Nobody can criticize us as well as we can. Because we have minds that have memories, and they don't let us off the hook sometimes. They just keep saying, "Never mind that. Remember when you did this?" So there's another story which is a very nice story, but this could also make you burst into tears. In America, they have a law that if somebody has done something very, very heavy, like murder, you're allowed to tell the murderer what you think of him. Like in this case, it was a mother and it was their child, and it was a 14-year-old boy that had murdered him. So she was going to go in and really, really tell him, what she thought of him. Anyway, when she went into the room, the boy was kind of curled like that, and he had his head between his knees like this. And as soon as she looked at him, she realized he's somebody else's son. He has a mother, and she's just like me. And he's done this, and he'll regret it now for the rest of his life, because he got life imprisonment. So she went up to the boy, and guess what she said to the boy? She said, "Do you mind if I give you a hug?" And the boy was really surprised, And then she just, she embraced him. So compassion and anger management doesn't always make sense. It's not always logical. When you're going to be compassionate and forgiving, it may not make sense. If you'd have told that woman 5 minutes before she went, "And you're going to be hugging him," she'd have said, "No way. It just doesn't make sense." But when her emotions got involved and she started seeing the whole thing from a different perspective, what could have been hate and resentment and bitterness that she could have kept going her whole life, at that point she was able to just give it up, which is the better thing to do, obviously. But it's also a hard thing to do as well. So that's a very proactive way of avoiding getting angry at people, if you can have that compassion. Not easy. But it's funny, because you would think, wow, this is the deal. You can stay resentful and bitter about this boy for the rest of your life, and you can know that you were in the right, and you can know that he was in the wrong, or you can forgive him and you can understand his situation. So what's going to be better for her? For the quality of her life, if she can move on and see it from his perspective and understand it and forgive him, then she can, her life obviously is always going to be scarred by that, but she's going to heal a lot better if she takes that approach than if she goes down the road of resentment. And there's a course it's a forgiveness course by Mahatma Prabhu. He's a Prabhupada disciple. He's based in Alachua. And he has these different courses, and there's one course, I think it's the intensive course on forgiveness, and it's testimonials, and it's people who gave up their anger and their resentment and immediately got free of cancer. They say cancer is the disease that is caused most by resentment. So they have all these, and then there's all these testimonials of people that were struggling with cancer. They forgave. There's actually there's a clinic in San Diego, and the first question they ask when you come in is, "Have you forgiven?" And you're only allowed to use the clinic if you're in the later stages of cancer and you've been everywhere else and everyone said that they can't cure you. And then it's the last resort. And then they'll accept you at this clinic. And the first thing they ask you is, have you forgiven? And then they work on that. And they have a huge success rate. It's in the over 90% of the people that come get free from their cancer, get cured from their cancer. That's in San Diego. If anyone wants to check it out and head over there. So the more I practice kindness, what happens when you practice kindness? When you start practicing being kind, what do you think happens? Yeah, you start becoming kinder. And then you start getting, oh, this kind thing's actually quite nice. I actually quite like this, Once you start getting the hang of it. But you have to practice it first. And when you're first practicing something, then it can seem artificial and awkward. But then once you've done it for a while and you get used to it, then you just find, I quite like being kind. I actually quite like doing this. That's why book distribution is nice, isn't it? You're like going out and giving people books. And you're just being kind to a stranger, and it's like, it softens the heart, I just want to give this person, I've been given a chance. I want to share this knowledge with others. Maybe this person will become a better devotee than me. Maybe he'll read the book and he'll really, who's to say, let me give everybody an opportunity. So if we practice kindness, then we become kinder. And the kinder you become, the less chance you've got of getting angry. Because sometimes Srila Prabhupada would also get angry. So it's not that anger isn't there in spiritual life. It's not that when you become, when you're able to manage anger, there are certain times you don't act out of anger, but the anger isn't based upon selfishness. It's based upon trying to help the person you're angry against, or help the situation which maybe the person is threatening, if he's threatening another person's life, and you're just watching, go, oh, well, I don't get angry actually, so you just carry on. And the guy's running up with a hatchet, that's okay, I'm non-violent, you just go ahead. But then if you were to do that, Krishna calls that action in inaction. You're being inactive, but you'll get a reaction for it. Whereas if you were to apprehend the person and stop him, maybe you'd have to be violent. That would be inaction. It would be action, but it would be considered inaction. There would be no reaction for it because it was just done solely out of the intention of protecting the person. So we need to clarify what is justifiable anger and what isn't, But the nature of spiritual anger is it's expressed immediately. And then they say anger is the quickest emotion to come and go. Of all the emotions you experience, anger comes and it goes as quickly as it came, like the high tide and the full moon. It comes and it goes, it crests and it goes. So you can be angry with somebody and then immediately, if it's a spiritual anger, if it's done with pure intention, then immediately, where it's interesting actually, they've done tests on people when they get them angry and then they take the blood and put it into a rat and the rat dies because it's so toxic. It kills the rat. And also by you becoming angry, your system is flooded with all this toxic, so it also has a bad effect on your health as well. So I don't know if you know anybody that regularly gets very angry. All the time he's shouting and punching things and using interesting words, very colorful language. Then their health is usually not so good. You know somebody like that? He's not going to breach confidentiality. But you could tap the person on the shoulder and say, my dear sir, do you know you're actually endangering your health? You need to stop chilling out and being nice and hugging people. Who are you to tell me? The worst thing you can say to an angry person is, calm down. Calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. I am calm. I am calm. No, you're very angry. No, I'm not angry. So, no, you need to forgive him. I will. I'll forgive him once I've killed him. So by being forgiving, compassionate, understanding, helps us to deal with it. One of the exercises you do with the forgiveness course is you play the person you're angry with, and you get another person to play you. And as the person you're angry with, you say to the person who's playing you, why you did what you did. Say the person got you really angry because you slammed the door. So then you play the person who slammed the door, and then the other person's playing you. Well, I slammed the door because I was having a terrible day and everything's been going wrong. And the last thing I wanted to do was be careful shutting this door. So I just slammed it because I was so frustrated. And then you explain to yourself why he was like that. And then you think, well, okay, I probably would have done the same myself. So then you can forgive him and then you can move on, you see. The worst thing you can say to yourself when somebody slams the door, the worst thing you can say is, I just don't understand why he would slam the door like that. I just don't understand. Then the next thing you have to say straight after that is, I need to understand why he slammed the door like that. So it's you. It's the onus is on you, not on anybody else changing, but on you, on how you navigate through the territory of community, of personal relationships. Don't rely on everybody else doing it. You just change. If other people don't want to change and they want to carry on slamming doors, okay, well, that's up to them. But how can I change the way I interact with the environment around me? The funny thing is, although you can't change what's going on around you, when you change, you automatically change what's going on around you. So you just need to change. It's a lot easier actually to change yourself than it is to change somebody else. Although we tend to think, no, I'll change once he stops slamming doors. When he stops slamming doors, then I'll stop getting angry. No, you have to stop getting angry first, and then maybe he'll stop slamming the doors, because you'll think, you're such a nice person, why would I want to slam the door if you're there? That's how it works. So it's easy to say. It's misleadingly easy, actually. You're listening to sometimes Mahatma Prabhu, and you think, oh, well, that's really easy, I'll try that. But when you actually come to try it, then you think, what was that again? What was that again? I know I'm supposed to behave differently right now. So it's a little difficult sometimes to put it into implementation. But that's the challenge. And it takes practice. And in the beginning, we're not so good. Practice over time, prolonged practice, then we can become perfect. So problem with anger is, the reason why we justify our anger is because we see faults. And so we think, well, because he has this fault, therefore I'm completely justifiable to be angry. But if your mind is dwelling on the faults of others, then your mind is your worst enemy. So that's a hard one, isn't it, sometimes? Your mind is caught onto someone's fault. Can you turn that around and appreciate something about them? Now, we had an exercise here when Mahaprabhu was here. It was an appreciation exercise. And you had to go up to somebody random. You hadn't thought about it beforehand, and just say what you appreciated in him, then embrace him. And then before he could say, no, that's not me, you've been too kind. All he has to do is just say, thank you very much. And then he tends to go and appreciate someone else, and then you go to appreciate somebody else. And after we'd done the appreciation exercise for about 45 minutes, then Mahaprabhu was saying, would anyone like to criticize anybody now? And everyone was like, well, not really, because, they've got so many good qualities to them. And okay, there is something I do find a bit annoying about them, but it's nothing compared to once you've... So you can turn things around sometimes when you're finding a fault in somebody. Just take a step back and think, okay, what can I find in that person that I can appreciate? And by doing that, it puts you into a certain mindset, where then to go into criticism, you feel it's just going to drag the consciousness down. So why would you want to do that? Why would you want to put yourself in a lower state of consciousness? Being resentful and dwelling on faults, this is all in the lower modes of nature. I'm trying to rise up into a higher mode of nature. Bring our consciousness onto a higher level. So why do those things which are destructive? Then our mind remains our enemy. But the mind is telling us it's our friend. It's saying, no, look, I'm just telling you, this person is like this one's like that. I'm doing this to protect you. But it's actually not protecting you, because it's bringing your consciousness down. So training the mind to be your friend is training the mind to be appreciative. They say there's two basic options you can have in life. one is contempt, and the other one is appreciation, gratitude. So they're the two ways that you can go. Are you grateful for everything that you have in life? Or do you have contempt? Or is there a bit of both? And can I increase the gratefulness? And can I reduce the contempt? Because when there's contempt, then how can Krishna be in the picture? If everything is Krishna, Krishna's hand behind everything, and something's gone wrong and we're really contemptuous about it, how can that still be Krishna in the picture? We're seeing Krishna, if we're actually Krishna conscious, then we're seeing everything as an arrangement, and it's there to teach me a lesson, one way or the other. Just like when we had Dhirashanta Maharaj here, he said, he was reading this prayer out, and it said, I asked God for strength, so he gave me troubles to overcome. I asked him for peace, so he gave me difficulties to learn to tolerate. I never got what I wanted, but I always got what I needed. So that's like an acquired taste to learn that. Okay, it wasn't what I actually wanted, but actually, yeah, maybe it was what I needed. Usually that's more in hindsight. But if you can develop it so that it's happening right here and now, so the thing is happening to you right here and now, and right here and now you're thinking, this is just what I need. But that does take some training to do that. And another thing Mahaprabhu says, which is quite nice, he says, I love myself too much to do that. So you can think, if you have compassion for yourself and love for yourself, why should I allow myself to act out of resentment, out of hatred, out of anger? I love myself too much to do that. You know, irrespective of whether the person deserves it or doesn't deserve it, I deserve it. I love myself too much to do that. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu, what's your name? Oh, Vishwambhar Das. Oh. Haribol Vishwambhar.
Hare Krishna. You were saying being in Krishna consciousness is seeing everything as an arrangement to teach me a lesson.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about that yesterday, but also wondering, is it really there for me to teach me a lesson? Like, is this, am I being inflated in thinking this? Or maybe it's such that all of us simultaneously, it's the case.
Well, we're practicing self-realization. We're not practicing everybody else realization. So sometimes we can try and self-realize somebody else. You know, we're sitting there listening to a class and we're thinking, oh my God, this person needs to hear this. He so needs to hear this. He gets so angry. He needs to, you know, and we're thinking about everybody else, you know, while we're reading some story in the Bhagavatam, and we're thinking this person needs to read this because he's so not like this. You know, I need to, what I'll do, I'll spray this on the back of his wall in graffiti, and when he comes back at night, he'll see it, and then maybe that'll get him to, but we're practicing self-realization. So it's just how it applies for us, how we can implement it for ourselves. And for other people, they have their own relationship with Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, and they're learning in their own way the lessons of life. And if we focus too much on how everybody else is going to process this, then however much we do, that's how much we don't focus. And we need 100% focus to process it for ourselves, 100%. That's what Krishna wants. For self-realization and Krishna consciousness, Krishna wants 100% of your consciousness, not 75% of it, and the other 25% analyzing everybody else and how they should do it, you know. So sometimes we can get a little distracted with everybody else realization. And then we forget, well, maybe I should be working on myself, you know, I've got plenty of stuff to sort out myself. And then we get so busy working on ourselves, we don't even notice, you know, anybody else. It's funny because everybody's worried about what everybody else thinks about them. But what they don't realize is because everybody else is worried about what everybody else thinks about them, nobody's thinking about you. So you spend your whole life, and at the end of your life, you land on your deathbed and they're all there, and you say, well, I did it. I got the big car. I got the fancy clothes. I got the big wife from Sweden. And they're like, we didn't even notice. We were too busy worrying about what everybody else thinks about us, you know. But I thought you guys had noticed, you know. I mean, that's why I did it, you know. No, we were too busy worrying about what everybody's thinking. We were trying to get our picture right on Facebook so that people thought we were cool, and we were laughing our heads off and having a great time. I didn't have time to really think about you, you know. So then it's such a waste of time. So better whatever time we do have is invested in ourselves. And then if we become a very compassionate, intentional person who's always praying for the welfare of others, then that will radiate out, even though directly we don't do anything. The people around us, our relationships will change for the better automatically. It's kind of a sublime, mystical way that it works. But we see some illustrations of it in stories related with Krishna when Shakshi Gopal, he was saying, you just, I will sort everybody out, and at the end it will be okay. And the Brahmins' wives as well, they were saying, well, I can't go back now to my husbands because they'll reject me. And Krishna says, no, it'll be okay. And he was in the hearts of all the husbands. So normal Vedic tradition is you spend the night away, you're rejected. But Krishna assured them, because he's in the heart, that wouldn't happen. So when they came back, because they were rightly situated with Krishna, he made sure everybody else was rightly situated toward them as well. So the kind of, you know, when you hear these, sometimes you go to a big temple and you'll see a group of devotees in the corridor. Yeah, I'll tell you what's wrong with this guy. Have one of those conversations. You can tap them on the shoulder and say, I can tell you what's wrong with this guy. And they'll all turn around, you know. And you can say, what's wrong with this guy is I'm not a pure devotee. That's what's wrong with ISKCON. So if you want to help ISKCON, just become a pure devotee. You're going to become a pure devotee? She already is a pure devotee. Any other questions or comments? Ashutosh, you look like you've got half a question. No? Oh. You're kind of musing, kind of processing it. Oh, one from Mother Prema. Okay.
That's why it's half a question.
I forgive you.
I was thinking sometimes we can be in a situation where maybe somebody's disturbed us and you think, well, is the disturbance coming from me? Like maybe I've got some desire if I wasn't wanting to be seen as this, or if I wasn't wanting to be respected, I wouldn't be troubled by what they said or did. So there's something in me that it's agitated. So sometimes you can look, well, is what they've said the problem, or is it what's in me that was looking for something that's the problem?
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to say some people actually are troublesome and maybe even abusive. And there comes the point where I've examined myself, I've looked that this person, and you can even see, oh, they had this happen to them or that happened to them, and I can see they've had a bad day, and I can see why they would be like that. Yeah. But still, it's harmful for me to be in that association, in that company. Sometimes, even though you can try to be forgiving or understanding or kind, you have to set a boundary and how to kind of balance the two.
Yeah, that's a nice point. In fact, sometimes people they get a bit antsy when they hear about being forgiving, you know, because they're thinking that means I'm going to have to condone this and I'm going to have to keep going through it again and again and again. And the question came up, well, what if I forgive somebody who's like a close family member and he just keeps doing it over and over and over again, you know? And okay, I've forgiven them, but... So Mahaprabhu was making a nice point. He says, when you forgive somebody, it means you understand why they've did it. So after that, you don't have to forgive them anymore. You just have to tolerate it. So you think, okay, so now I know where the guy's coming from. So you tolerate it. But that doesn't mean you have to be in the room with them 24/7. After that, you think, okay, here they come. That guy just so winds me up because it's the way he is, so fine. But I don't want to be too close, you know. So you learn how to set your boundaries. And it's interesting because Rupa Goswami is saying the boundaries are there: mentally honor, physically dandavats, or open the heart. But he's not saying everybody. So you learn to discriminate. Okay, this one from a distance. Haribol, he chants. Okay, fine. Haribol, that's fine. Okay, great. Oh, glory. See what Rath Yatra wants here. Haribol, that's about enough. Great devotee. Haribol. Somebody else is really committed, like, okay, I'm going to pay my obeisances. You know, this person's sold out to the deity, they've given their life, okay, dandavats. And this person, I just trust him so much, you know, and every time I've ever been to him, he's just always given me the answer, which has been really, really helpful, you know. So he's Guru Tattva to me. So him, I'll go and I'll open up, you know. So that's not you being offensive by applying your intelligence and discriminating, you know. So that you don't put yourself in harm's way, and you also don't put them in harm's way. It's doing them a favor as well, you see, so that they don't end up saying silly things or doing silly things, which is not going to be helpful for them either, you know. So you have to be, I don't know if you're familiar with this word, canny. It's a word that the Scottish have. Hey, it's a wee canny one, you know. And so you have to be, when you're canny, you go like that. That's what canny people, so canny, isn't it? Canny, and you know you're canny. It's a variation on the Hindu one, which is like that. With that one, you're not sure whether it's no or it's yes. It's kind of like anything goes, isn't it? Oh, yes, very much. Right? Is that yes or no? I'm not sure. But that's canny, you know. So you're a bit canny. You're like, okay, I forgive him. It's the way he's conditioned. He's what he's been through. But I'm not going to get too involved with this. I'm certainly not going to ask his opinion or her opinion on something. You know, that would be saved for people that I really trust. I have a lot of respect for. Have a very high level of integrity. They're the ones I'm going to open up to. You know. And it's good that everybody has that in their life, somebody that they have that they can open up to, you know. Not that you just see a Guru Maharaj once a year for Vyasa Puja, and it's just you and him all the way. There has to be someone in your life that you can open up to. If you don't have that, then it's very difficult. Because they say a problem solved, shared is a problem halved. So just imagine that wherever problems are going on in your heart will be halved just by sharing them with somebody that you can trust. And so you may be thinking, well, I don't need to really trust anybody. I'm okay. I'll take my chances. I know how to put my bead bag on. I'm okay. I can make my own prasadam. I've got my cookbook. I'll take my chances. But you really are taking your chances if you're trying to go in spiritual life on your own. Better that you establish at least one relationship where there's open communication, where you can just open up and spill the beans, you know. And the person's not going to judge you. They say that if you're judging someone, then you're not hearing them, you're hearing yourself. You're just hearing your opinion of them. You're not really hearing them. You're just listening to yourself, actually. You're bouncing yourself off them, but you're not hearing them. And when a person's opening up and you're judging him, then he will know that. He may not consciously be aware of it, but on a subtle level, he'll be aware that you're judging him. So good to have somebody in your life that you can open up to, and they can just be empathic. There's empathic and there's sympathetic. There's a difference. Empathic is the person's opening up to you and you're present, you're with him 100% and you're listening to him. Sympathetic is the person opens up to you and then you say, oh, that's terrible. And then he feels bad that he's made you feel bad, and then everyone feels bad. So sympathetic isn't really what's needed. Empathic is when you listen to the person and you know, but you still have your pluck, you still have your wit, you're still bouncy, everything's still hey ho, here we go. And then you can lift that person as well, you see. Sometimes that's confused. I'm going to be sympathetic. It won't help the person to be sympathetic. Empathic will help the person. It will empower the person. Any other questions or comments? Where are you going? What time are we going till? Oh, you're going to the one. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So it seems that the most kind of toughest moments is when it's like a happening, you know, like a trigger.
Yeah.
There's some sort of trigger that comes up, and it's like seem to be the most difficult moment, because after that you can intellectualize and start thinking about it and start to see different perspective. So can you give some advice on that, you know, when somebody press the button on your triggers?
Does everyone know what a trigger is? They have an expression in America, it's called, that guy really presses my buttons. You know what that is? You know that, yeah? pressing your buttons. It's like they just get under your skin, you know. You're going to be tolerant and saintly, and this person comes up and he starts doing something, and it's like, I can't handle this. So they manage to get under your skin and really agitate you, really annoy you. And then you have these things, they're triggers. You may have a core hurts, which is where, I don't know, maybe when you were a kid, your dad smacked you in the face with a lollipop, and it really scared you. So now when someone comes up to you with a lollipop and goes like that, you burst into tears because it's a trauma that you had when you were a kid. So lollipop, bang on the head, oh my God. Because for years you were traumatized by that when you were a child. So that's like a core hurt. You know, if you brush past somebody with a bruised arm, and they jump in the air, you know, and you're thinking, well, that was kind of over the top, you know, only brushed past you. But the person is bruised. And so that is also like a trigger. So the person overreacts, you know, he really, really does get upset. So then he has to look at what it is, you know. Maybe at the time you can't do very much about it because it's just such an instantaneous reaction that you just, and then later on you realize that was wrong. I shouldn't have behaved like that. So that you go back and you make your apologies, and then you really have to look at it. The tendency is called spiritual bypassing, is you find there's a hurt there and you don't want to deal with it. So you say, well, I'm just going to ignore it. So, I mean, it'll probably go away if I just ignore it. So that's called spiritual bypassing. But unfortunately, it doesn't go away. It festers. It stays under the carpet. You know, if you keep sweeping things under the carpet for 30 years and then you whip the carpet back, there's mold and mushrooms and all kinds of strange, weird and wonderful things all under the carpet. And I thought I got rid of that years ago. But you just swept it under the carpet. So it's a little painful when you have to look at your dark side and see it for what it is. And we tend to resist. You know, it's just natural, isn't it? When you're feeling pain, you'll resist the pain, you know. But it's actually the least painful to face the pain and go through it and process it properly and heal than to keep avoiding it all the time. The pain of avoiding the hurt is actually much worse than the pain of facing the hurt and just dealing with it. Okay, so what is it? Okay, I was traumatized by this. How am I going to process this in a way that I don't blame the person and I see myself for what I am, and I see where my weaknesses are and where I need to strengthen up. Does that answer the question? Yeah. So yeah, we're practicing self-realization, but we've been going to these mental health first aider courses. 90% of the police problems are mental health issues these days. 90% of the times the police get called out. So you could say, well, this has not really got anything to do, you know, with Krishna consciousness. But the environment that we're in right now is very, very high on the mental health scale. You know, 1 in 3 now in Scotland have got mental health issues. 1 in 3 are on something or having to deal with something. And how many are undiagnosed? It's a huge amount of people, you know. And then and ourselves as well, you know. We haven't come through our experience in the material world unscathed. We'll have scars and things that we need to deal with, you know. Now you could say, well, just chant Hare Krishna Prabhu and everything will be fine, you know. But you can imagine if you've just, you know, been run over and one of your legs is all crushed and oh, Prabhu. And he said, well, just chant Hare Krishna, Prabhu, it'll be fine. You're not that body anyway. But you need to deal with the body. You're in the body, and you've got a subtle body as well, made up of your mind, intelligence, your ego, your emotions, and that may be damaged. And you have to look at that. Okay, so what do I need to do? You know, it's not just going to go away. I mean, it could go away by chanting Hare Krishna. But Hare Krishna is a mantra which is to evoke pure love of God. Because if you have pure love of God, a lot of your hang-ups would go away. But there's an intermediate stage of where you are now and where you'd like to be, and how am I going to navigate through that? And then you need to learn certain things, you know. I mean, changing a tire or fixing a puncture, you won't find it anywhere in Srila Prabhupada's books, but he does say, go out and spread Krishna consciousness, and you won't get far without a car. So you need the car So you'll need to know how to change the tire, and you need to know how to fix the puncture. You'll need to know how to check the oil, or you won't be getting very far at all. You'll be getting through a lot of cars, but you won't get very far. Now you could say, well, that's really mundane. So the mind is also mundane. Emotion, psychology is mundane. But if you want to get from A to B, then you need to know how to change your tire and check your punctures and your oil inside your head so that you can function, or your heart is really where it's all going on. Well, that's cheered everybody up, hasn't it? Well, we look on the bright side. The bright side is we can do it. We can. We have the tools. We're in the association of people that are of a high level of integrity, and we can learn so many useful things. There's so many courses, actually. If you go to mahatma.com, he's got all these different amazing courses that you can do on purity, control, compassion, forgiveness, anger management. They're all in there, Question? No? Any questions or a comment? A reflection? An epiphany? Anybody have an epiphany? Vishvambha.
You talked about spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
You said going around a problem instead of addressing it.
Yeah.
Where is the spiritual? What about that makes it spiritual?
The phrase was coined by a Buddhist who did a whole thesis on it. So, sorry, what's the question?
Why is it spiritual bypassing as opposed to just bypassing?
Okay, so say the brahmachari is attracted to a woman, and he knows he shouldn't be, and so he just thinks, okay, I hate those women. I'm going to have wood for breakfast tomorrow. I'm going to be so fired up. So he's thinking he's got over it by doing that, but what he's done is he's just bypassed the problem. He's not faced it. And the reason why it's called spiritual bypassing, although it isn't very spiritual, really, is he's going to try and fake it in the hope that one day he'll make it. But the problem with faking something is because it isn't real, and devotional service is based upon being real and being genuine, then he's not really practicing the angas of bhakti properly. He's doing it in this deceptive way. And it's misleading himself, and it's also misleading others. Because the process of anartha nivritti, where you're getting rid of unwanted things, is that you have these issues, you see them, and then you consciously decide, okay, I don't want this anymore. Like when you're making ghee and it comes up to the surface, you don't see something come up on the surface and think, okay, let's just put that on now, check that out later. It goes, that's it, gone, Spiritual bypassing is like, okay, I'll put all that in there for now, and we'll go with this, and I'll just check this out later on, But you've not really got rid of it. It's in the name of being spiritual, so we say spiritual bypassing, but it's more in the realm of mundane deceptiveness. It's called Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. He doesn't call it spiritual bypassing. He calls it utsamai. He calls it falsely confident. When you falsely think that you've mastered devotional service, so you've been a devotee for you have to look at your watch to see how long you've been in the ashram, and I'm fired up. And look at the state of him, he looks so spaced out, he should get with it like me. I'm so fired up, And he thinks he's way up there, So utsamai it's a false utsa is enthusiasm, and maya is false. So he's deceiving himself into thinking he's way ahead of what he actually is, So he's not really doing anything spiritual at all, really. He's just coming up against an impediment. It's one of the 6 forms of unsteady devotional service. Your service will not become steady until you give up this deception. So it's better to just see it for what it is. Maybe you can't see it for what it is, and then you have some close friend who you can trust, and you say, Prabhu, I was thinking of becoming a world acharya. What you think? Think I could pull it off? So, well, Prabhu, maybe you should try following the principles first for more than 6 hours, and we'll see how you get on. You're probably right, Prabhu. Yeah, takes time. Takes time. Actually, it's a lifetime's process. Going back to Godhead, actually, perfecting the human form of life takes a lifetime to do it. So it doesn't happen overnight. It's prolonged, sustained, confident enthusiasm, Rupa Goswami says, and then you have to be patient. He doesn't say how long you have to be patient, but when you've been at it for 40 years, you start realizing, all right, because when you're about, you're thinking, be patient. Okay, so it's probably meaning next week, and then next week you think, well, maybe he's probably meaning a month. I mean, probably in a month I'll be, pure devotee, and then next year. Okay, maybe he means 5 years. Okay, 5 years, and then 5 years later you start thinking, okay, this is going to take quite a while, And then after 40 years you're thinking, maybe it won't just be in one lifetime. Although Prabhupada does assure us, if you try in one lifetime, even if you are only 60% or whatever, Lord Chaitanya will come in and make up the difference if you're prepared to try. Follow the principles, chant 16 rounds, and cooperate with spreading Lord Chaitanya's mission. Then Lord Chaitanya will come in and make up the difference. Srila Prabhupada was saying that because he was saying, if you're just even 90%, Krishna will take you back. So the devotees were going, even 80%, and even 70%. And the devotees were still like 70%, And then Prabhupada got off his dais and he's walking around and he says, or even, otherwise just hold on to my dhoti and I will take you back. So that's our saving grace. Srila Prabhupada is merciful to us because we've tried. We've tried the best we can. If we could have tried better, we would have done, The mind's always saying, well, you could have done better. Well, if we could have done better, we would have done better. So this is the best we can do with the way we are. And I'll keep trying as best I can. Don't let the things you can't do stop you doing the things you can do. And if you keep doing the things you can do, eventually you'll be able to do the things you can't do. Boom, boom. What do you think of that? Any other questions or comments? So it's good because if we learn anger management, then we can stop being so angry with ourselves as well, And we need to learn how to look at our dark side and accept it for what it is, and say, well, it's great that it was there, because if it hadn't have been there, I wouldn't be where I am today. To learn whatever it is that I needed to learn, And if you can accept yourself for what you are, then that's where love and compassion begins. It begins with yourself. Unless you can love and accept yourself for who you are and what you are, how will you be able to do it for anybody else? If you've written yourself off as a useless waste of space, how can you love and appreciate anybody else? Self-realization is learning how to, first of all, love yourself. And you're part and parcel of Krishna, so, yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of by, it's interesting as well, Srila Prabhupada was saying the highest principle. They were saying, what's the highest principle? Prabhupada was asking his disciples, what's the highest principle? And they say, oh, Prabhupada, it's to go out and save everybody and give out millions of books and give up our selfishness and save everybody. And Prabhupada said, the highest principle is to save yourself. Save yourself first. If you jump in, if everyone's drowning in the river, okay, guys, don't you worry. And you jump in and they turn around and they say, thank God you've come. Can you swim? Swim? Nobody told me anything about swimming. I've just come in to save you. Well, if you can't swim, you're not going to have much chance, are you? And then everybody goes down together. Well, that wasn't much use to anybody. So if you can't swim, you stay on the bank and you throw a rope. And you pull them in, you stay on solid ground. You save yourself first. You get onto solid ground and you throw a rope. Or you learn to swim. very quickly. And then you jump in and you help them. But the first principle is save yourself. Show yourself love and compassion. And how do we do that? We do that by taking our sadhana very seriously, by taking our chanting very seriously, our reading of Srila Prabhupada's books, our attendance at the temple programs. We take it very seriously. And that's how we show ourselves compassion. We see this as a rare opportunity. Let me take full advantage. Let me take every opportunity to serve any chance I get. Let me have more appreciation for what Prabhupada has given us, the Parampara, Lord Chaitanya, Krishna. It's interesting because we all feel indebted to Srila Prabhupada, but Srila Prabhupada tells the story. He was asked by Krishna, would you go into the material world? And he said, no, I don't want to go. Krishna had to force him. He says, no, look, just go, write the books, and I'll take care of everything else. So Krishna was so kind that he forced Srila Prabhupada to come. That's how kind Krishna is. So Krishna, okay. So Prabhupada says, okay, I'll come then. I'll write the books. And then Krishna will take care of everything else. That's it, yeah. Okay, so there we go. ISKCON Guruvrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Bol. All of you ki jai.